to the Great Dwyer Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio with your host, motivational speaker Greg Dwyer. Be sure to check out Greg at www.gregdwyer.com. That's www.gregdwyer.com. Now on to our show. Take it away, Greg.
Okay, I'm glad you're back. We're back. We're talking about Diamond Mind. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the D in Diamond, which is decide where you are and also decide what your worldview is, how you see the world. Then we talked about I, which is important, knowing what's important to you. I don't think it can be a million things. I don't think it can be 1,000 things. It has to be just a few things. We can't do everything. So focus is about really understanding what's important. Last week we talked about aiming, going after what you want, and focusing your aim towards what you want and making it happen. Now today we're going to talk about the letter M, which is mind. Mind yourself. This reminds me of a story many years ago, about 6 years ago. I'm in Ireland and my hotel is not right in the middle of Dublin. It's a bus ride. A couple stops, I have to get on the bus and figure out where to get off and walk through a little path to get there. Delightful, delightful hotel. But I remember when I was on the bus, I asked the woman next to me, do you know where the hotel is? She's like, yes. She says, I'm going to get off this stop here, but mind yourself because the next stop is for you. And I thought, well, that was interesting. Mind yourself. And that really lingered with me. Mind yourself in the sense that if you know exactly what's important for your life and you're aiming towards it, and you're deciding how you see the world, minding yourself, in my understanding, puts it all together. And what she was really saying to me is, don't miss the opportunity. Stay focused, right? I mean, that's really what she was saying. She was going to get off the bus at that stop. She wanted me to be focused and not to be distracted. Now, yesterday I came across a term that I never heard before. Now, I'm familiar with the concept, it's just that I never heard of this term. The term is goal diffusion. Have you ever heard this before? Goal diffusion. How do I explain it? It's having too many things on your plate, or it's multitasking, you know? Monday morning you got to make phone calls, but you'd rather clear off your desk, or you'd rather do something else. And so there's this conflict going on. Goal diffusion. So when it comes down to getting focused, you're not able to do it because there's just, should I check my email? Maybe I should check my social media, or maybe I should check something else, which takes you away from what you really want. And so there's just too many things going on. It's like multitasking. I know we all do it. I do it. You do it. I also know it's really not good for us. If something is really, really, truly important, think of your family, or think of something that is really, truly important to you, right? Like driving a car. You're driving a car. That should be important, really important. You're focused. You're not looking at your cell phone. You follow me. It's really important because people can get into car accidents. And it's the same thing with what we're talking about here, minding yourself and being able to do the right thing at the right time. Now, I'm in sales. So I have a little game that I play every single day when I make my phone calls to keep myself focused. And I'll tell you a little bit about it at the end of the call in the last few minutes of it. But whatever you're focusing on in your life, you got to really mind yourself. And what I mean by that is you have to take out the cognitive dissonance. You have to take away all of the distractions. Now, if you go on Google, they're going to tell you what to do. And it's very clear. There's like 10 steps. They're going to say, number one, you got to get a lot of sleep. Don't just try to get 2 or 3 hours of sleep. Get a lot of sleep. Get out in nature. Exercise. Take breaks. Listen to music. These are all common sense things that we forget about. Declutter your office space. work offline, avoid caffeine, have a balanced diet, and have a to-do list. These are all great things, and it's a great place to start. What I tell people is the limitation with these things is that we don't always do them. We don't always follow through. We don't look at our list and say, oh yeah, I need to really go to bed early tonight, or I need to say no to caffeine, or no to fast food, and I need to eat a balanced diet. And as far as being online, I'm checking my email, social media while I'm on a podcast, while I'm doing something else. We all fall prey to this, even myself. I think there's a better way of doing this. I really definitely believe there's a better way, and that's what I want to share with you today as far as minding yourself. Because I think it's easy to show up at a workshop or at an event and just tell people, here's the 10 commandments of what you need to do. And then Monday morning rolls around, and then what happens? We all know, we've all seen this in our own life and other people's lives, people don't execute. They don't follow through with what they know how to do. But there is a small percentage. There's a very small percentage of people that know what to do, and they do it. What is it about these people? I think they think differently, completely different than the masses, that they get all excited and then a couple days go by or a couple weeks go by and then they're right exactly back to where they were before. So minding yourself is a different way of being. It's a different way of thinking. I've told this story before, I'll tell you again. I remember years ago, I was giving a speech, I think it was down in Virginia on the East Coast, maybe it was New York or New Jersey, I don't remember exactly where I was, and my mentor was in the audience. So after it was over, he came up to me, he says, how do you think you did? And I said, I think they loved it. They were all excited. I did $10,000 worth of business that day. I never hit a $10,000 mark like that before. That was my first time that happened. I was really, truly excited. So as we were walking to the car, we stopped and talked a little bit about this. And he said, what would you improve and what would you do differently? And we talked about that. And then finally I looked at him and I said, this thing is really concerning me, and I don't know if you have an answer to it. How many of these people, as excited they are today, and they were, and they bought $10,000 worth of my product, which I was happy about, I said, how many of these people are going to stay focused and excited a day from now, or a week from now, or a month from now, or a year from now? And what was startling to me is he didn't say anything at all. He just was completely silent. He didn't answer my question. And that really bothered me. I thought to myself, I got to get to the bottom of this. Why is it that people don't execute? Don Miller, if you've followed me on social media, you know I love Donald Miller. I highly recommend his Business Made Simple program. It's just a wonderful program to wrap your mind around what it takes to run a business. And they've done studies. Even though people buy their course, or they buy the books, or they even attend a live seminar, spending thousands of dollars, what they have found, and even one of the people on the staff wrote their PhD about this, is very few people execute. What I mean by execute is that they follow through with what they learned. I mean, this boggles my mind that a person would leave their family, leave their house, and maybe they would go to a workshop or a seminar, spend thousands of dollars, learn all this great material, right? Or have an online course experience or read a book, and then come Monday morning or a week later or a month later, they don't execute, meaning they don't put it into practice and do something different. It just boggles my mind. But that's one of the things that they say in all of their courses. This is great material. We're teaching you, how to run a business, but eventually you have to do it. Like, you have to get focused, and you can't have goal diffusion. You have to make it happen. One time, I think it was about a year ago, I was in a workshop and I asked the question, why is it that people don't execute? And I was sincere. I wanted to know what they had to say. Why is it that people don't read the book, or they don't finish the online course, or they go to the workshop, but Monday morning they're back to exactly where they were a week before they took the course. And they said something that was really interesting to me, and I want to share it with you. I think it makes a lot of sense. What they said was this, that people who want to change, they'll seek out a guru, or they'll buy a book, or they'll go to a workshop, or they'll go to an online course, whatever it is. And they get so excited, and they're around other people that are really excited, really excited. And there's this dopamine hit, or serotonin is stimulated. And people feel great in those environments. I mean, I've been in environments where, it's been very, very positive. And then what happens is people get on the plane, they go home, and like on Monday morning, that dopamine hit isn't there. It's almost like an addiction. And so then people, instead of making phone calls, or instead of doing the business or doing what they need to be doing, they would rather get another dopamine hit by buying another book. I can relate. There's a dopamine hit when you find out your package from Amazon has just been delivered. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. But how long does that last? You go over to the post office, you get the book, you open it up, and that dopamine lasts maybe a couple minutes, and then it's gone. And then you say, well, I need another hit. It's almost like I think it is. I think it's an addiction. So then you buy a course and you don't finish the course. Or you take a class online, or you get a coach, right? What I love about a coach, if they're really a good coach, and I do coaching, but I don't take on everybody, because and this is not a sales pitch. I really don't want to work with anybody unless they're really, truly serious. And I don't have a lot of time just to waste my time. So I really raise the bar really high and ask people if they're really serious about what they want to change in their life. And I have a tendency of really getting down to business with people. And I love the topic, but most people won't do it. Why? Here's the rub. This is a dirty, dirty secret that Patricia Fritt shared with me this past year. And she's been in the training business for years, and she makes her living doing that sort of thing. And this is what she said. She said 2 weeks. 2 weeks is 14 days. 14 days after you give a presentation, or 14 days after you have gone to a presentation, you are going to only remember 30% of what was presented to you. So think about this. 70% of what you heard at that workshop or seminar, you're not going to remember 2 weeks later. So a month ago, here it is, July. It is the 30th of July as I'm filming this, 2023. A month ago, which was June 25th to be exact, I gave a sales presentation in front of a team of about 8 members. And I gave the presentation, which took about 45 minutes. After that was over, everyone got my report, right? So they heard me speak it, they listened to it. I gave the presentation with a flip chart. Then after that was over, I gave them the physical notebook of my report, which was 2 pages. And then I asked them to read it in silence, because I went over it verbally. Then I had them read it, so they're hearing it, right? They're hearing it. Now they're seeing it. And then I asked them to have questions and answer time. So ask me anything so that I can clarify this for you. So we had a little bit of a dialogue going back and forth after they read it and after they listened. A week later, I asked them. I said, do you remember? They said, yes, we do. A month later, I asked them to share with me their 3 steps. There's 3 baby steps at the end that I gave as far as a recommendation for this group. And they were not that clear about it. So I resent the report and asked them to read it again and to share it with their larger team. This is what I know. We don't retain information the first time we hear it. And that's the reason why I've done this series, because over and over again, we need to hear it so that it gets into our mind. And this is what we're talking about today. We're talking about minding ourselves. So let me look at the time. We're at the half half mark. So let me just hit a button right here, a commercial, and we'll be right back in a couple seconds.
You've been listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show, brought to you by motivational speaker Greg Dwyer on buildingfortunesradio.com. Do you wish you could sharpen your focus on what matters most to you and achieve more? Then you owe it to yourself to read Greg's ebook at gregdwyerebook.com. That's www.gregdwyerebook.com. Download it today and give it away. As always, we want to thank you for listening to the Greg Dwyer Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio with motivational speaker Greg Dwyer. Now back to our show. Take it away, Greg.
Okay, we're back and we're talking about minding yourself. So how do you do this? Or I should say, how do people do this who stay focused versus the masses? And I've been sharing, the first 15 minutes, what the majority of people do, what most people do. Most people, and hopefully you don't want to be most people, right? Most people get excited about a book, a movie, a workshop, a seminar, and then their life goes right back to where it was before. It reminds me of Groundhog Day. All repeating patterns, beliefs, activity over and over again, like a hamster in a wheel, right? That's Groundhog Day. So what is it about people who are really successful in that they can not only get focused, they stay focused? Now here's the secret. It's not that difficult. So I made a little drawing here. If you're listening to me on the radio, you can't see this, but it's two triangles. It's one triangle pointing upward and the other triangle pointing downward. And in between the two triangles, there is a gap, right? So the gap is wide open here in this illustration. The bottom triangle represents your unconscious mind. The triangle above represents your conscious mind. Now, as a magician, I can tell you, I've learned magic since the 70s. I studied magic, was really my identity in the 70s and 80s. And what I know for sure about the mind when it comes to the conscious mind is that the conscious mind is easily distracted. A magician can easily distract an audience. We can be easily distracted. I might know that I should get a good night's sleep tonight, but I might go to bed at midnight. I know what to do, but I really don't do it. I might know that I need to get out in nature, but, I won't do it. That sort of thing. Or take breaks, listen to music, or declutter my office space. I know about all these things, and I know I need to focus on just one thing, right? I can't focus on 100 things. I might know this intellectually, but I also know that if someone knocks on the door, or someone sends me a message, or I have a thought, I have to run to the post office today, which is what I talked about earlier, goal diffusion, where you're so conflicted, it's easy for people to be unfocused. So the conscious mind is not the answer. It's not the answer. You can go on Google, or you can read a book about focus, and they can tell you all of these things to do. But I really believe that successful people who are able to stay focused, this is not what they're doing. They don't have a list, a to-do list. They don't have, I shouldn't drink caffeine today mindset. Or I shouldn't have that burger and fries. I don't think that's where they're beginning. I think they're thinking differently. In fact, I know they are. So number one, the conscious mind is easily distracted. It's like willpower. Sure, willpower is a great place to start, but you're not going to last on willpower. That's the problem. The other challenge is that the unconscious mind is already programmed. It's programmed from childhood. So people who study this say 50% of what we think, say, and do is habitual. Reminds me of Groundhog Day. So how do people break out of this? The small minority, that is. How do they do it? It's really simple. I'm asking the question, how do they close the gap? The gap between the top triangle and the bottom triangle so that it's more like a diamond. How do they shine like a diamond? How do they unlock their potential so they can stay focused? It's really easy. The first thing they do, and I've done this myself, and when I've talked to people, this is what they all say. They know what's important. So I have a triangle here, and at the top I have it darkened at the very top. They have no doubt at all what is important to them right now. Now, there's 100 things that can be important, or there can be 50 things or 10 things that can be important in our lifetime, right? But I'm talking about right now, like, 9 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night or tomorrow morning or while I'm driving. These people are in the present, right? They're not so much in the past, not so much in the future. They're in the present and they're saying, what is important right now? Okay? So in prospecting, if you're in business, if you make outbound calls like I do, you don't want to spend 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning looking at all of your social media or looking at your computer and emails. Those are prime time to reach out to people and make phone calls, if that's what you do. It doesn't make sense for you to say, I'm going to work on my website 9, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, or say, oh, I'm just going to answer emails, between 1 and 3. That's goal diffusion. Between 1 and 3 or 1 and 5, that's the best time to make phone calls. You'll reach people, right? So you have to think differently. People who are able to stay focused, they're asking the question, what is important now? Right now, right? You can have interruptions, things can happen, but they have laser focus. They're like, no, now's the time to go to the gym. Now's the time to read the book. Now's the time to make the phone calls. Now's the time to send the emails. Maybe you send the emails after 9 or 10 o'clock at night. That's the first thing. They're in the present and they're asking themselves what is important. The second thing they do to close the gap, and this is a little confusing, but I'll share it with you in a very simple way. They put themselves in a trance. So here's the triangle at the top, here's the triangle at the bottom. Think of it as two triangles, one facing up, one facing the bottom. And what is closing the gap between the two triangles is what I call a trance state or imagination. I have water here at the bottom, water on the first level of the triangle facing down. I have a sun facing up at the top, and in between I have a boat. The name of the boat is called imagination. Now, you may not accept this at face value, but think about how much time you spend daydreaming. Maybe you do meditate, maybe you don't meditate, but when you fall asleep at night, there's that state of mind where you're like half in and half out, you're in that dreamy state. The same thing when you wake up in the morning. If you're like me, I don't wake up to an alarm clock, but when I wake up in the morning, I'm in this kind of dreamy state between really being awake and not being awake. That's a great time to tap into your imagination. So what I have found, this is what I found. If this is my last video that I were to do, this is what I would say. Successful people who know how to stay focused, they're not doing it with a to-do list. They're not doing it by necessarily watching their diet or what they drink or being offline. They're not. What they're doing is they're thinking completely different. They're saying what is important now, that's what they're asking themselves, and then they're using every single waking moment and even sleeping moment using trance, hypnosis, meditation to be laser focused by using or tapping in to imagination. Now, if you've ever been in an office, you can walk out at any time of day. People will be looking up and they're looking out the window. Maybe they're in a trance state. They're thinking about their summer vacation, or they're thinking about going away on that boat trip, right? People do it. Or you're driving a car, on a long journey and you're in a trance. You just can't imagine how you got home today, right? I've done that. Or sit in front of a television, which I don't do that very much. But we have a tendency of going into trances all the time, in and out, while we're sleeping, while we're awake. Successful people who stay focused towards making something happen, and it doesn't matter what it is. They're obsessed. And the way that they do it is they identify what's important, they say no to everything else. Number two, they use their daydreaming time, or if you want to call it hypnosis or trance time or sleep time, to tap into their imagination by what they see, by what they hear, and what they feel. And here's the key. They're doing it not just on the weekends, not just at the seminar, not at the online course or the Zoom call. They're doing it all the time. All the time. They know it's important, and they're putting themselves in a hypnotic trance of imagination, and they're seeing what they want in visual colors. They're hearing it. They're feeling it. They're making it real. And then lastly, it's really simple. They're taking action. I got to tell you, folks, most people don't take action. And the reason why is because we're afraid. We're afraid. We know we'd like to have that thing or do that thing or expand our reality, but what tends to hold us back are just doubts and fears, and really what it comes down to is it's outside of our comfort because we haven't had these things before. Successful people, the way that they're able to pop past that resistance or to get past that comfort zone barrier is they do it in their mind first, through the magic of hypnosis, through imagination, through trance-like states. So yeah, is it scary? Sure, it's scary. Yeah. If it isn't scary, then you're living in Groundhog Day. If it isn't scary, you're just doing the 45 to 65,000 thoughts every single day, and you're comfortable. Don't get me wrong, you're comfortable, but you're staying small because you're afraid to expand. People who stay focused, I think the reason why they can take action is because they've already taken action in their dreams at night. They've already taken action in their daydreaming during the day. It's what they talk to themselves, or I should say it's how they talk to themselves. So these are the three keys. It's not that difficult. It's easy to learn. It's easy to do. In fact, you could actually teach this to somebody else. There's two types of people, all right? There's the one group of people who daydream on purpose, right? And these are the people I'm talking about. These are the people who daydream on purpose, or they put themselves in a trance state on purpose. And there's other people that daydream whenever it happens. And it could be daydreaming about their summer vacation or daydreaming about their retirement. They're doing it too, but it's not necessarily on purpose. So I tell people, when you're at work, focus on your work, right? And when you're home, focus on your family or focus on your personal life. But successful people who stay focused, they don't look at a to-do list, not at all. And rarely do they battle with goal diffusion. You know, they know when they're at the office at 9 o'clock in the morning and they need to put in 8 hours or 5 hours or whatever they're doing, they know what will waste their time, what will waste their resources. They have programmed themselves. Really, that's what they're doing, is they're taking the conscious mind and they're taking the unconscious mind and they're bringing it together in such a way that they're able to stay focused because they know what's important. They put themselves in a trance on a daily basis and they know how to take action. So, I know I gave you something to think about. Getting focused, not that difficult. Not that everyone does it. New Year's Eve. But staying focused, that's the real secret. Can you imagine that? I hope you can. Talk to you next week. Bye.
You've been listening to the Great Dwyer Radio Show, brought to you by motivational speaker Greg Dwyer on buildingfortunesradio.com. Check out Greg at gregdwyer.com. Be sure to download his ebook at gregdwyerebook.com to stay focused on what matters most to you. That's www.gregdwyerebook.com. We want to thank you for listening. Now go make a difference in your world.